Oh hi. Brest, the city in the southwest of Belarus, the administrative center of the Brest region and the Brest district. For January 1, 2021, the population of the city made 340,318 people. It is located in the southwest part of the area, at confluence of the Makowets River with the Western Bug, at frontier with Poland. The large railway junction, river port on Mukowce, important knot of highways. Belongs to number of the most ancient Slavic settlements. It is for the first time mentioned in the Novgorod First Synod. Chronicle under 1017, in Lavrentievsky and Ipatievsky Chronicles under 1019. It is mentioned under 1017 as the city of Trevlians. It is mentioned as Beresty in the story of temporary years under 1019, though under 980 still the village of Berstovo is mentioned in it. On Berstov in Selts, a hedgehog zone at nowadays Berstovi. By a year of the first mention, Brest, the fifth city in the territory of present Belarus, only Polotsk. 862. Vitebsk. 974. Turov. 980. And Volkovisk. 1005. Are mentioned earlier. From the center of the Brest region Bs. From 1991 Republic of Belarus. This city was the center of the Berstysky Earth and is one of the most important cities of Kievan Rus and the Galицko-Volhynsky Principality. Brest also served as a strong point on the way to Kiev. The mayor is the chairman of City Executive Committee. Executive Committee of the City Soviet of People's Deputies. A. Rogachik. The ancient name of Brest Beresty. According to the most known version, the name of the city comes from the word birch bark. An external layer of bark of a birch. And in modern form Brest is probably already artificial, from the word of birch barks. A type of an elm ulmus. In 1863 the traveler Pavel Shpilevsky wrote down the legend of origin of the name of Brest connected with a travel to Grand Duchy of Lithuania of one rich merchant with the companions. Unexpectedly the way to a wagon train was barred by the swamp around which many birches grew. Travelers cut down trees and on a birch flooring could pass a bog. There were they to the island which was formed by the big river and the small river flowing into it. The merchant decided to thank pagan god Veles for the fact that everything passed successfully and built the pagan temple on the island. After a while, returning from Lithuania where there was a successful trade, the merchant and his companions stopped at Velesev of the pagan temple again, constructed log huts and founded the city which called Beresty. In chronicles of the 12th, 13th centuries also the name Beresty occurs in historical documents of the 16th century, by this name occurred at inhabitants of neighborhood of the city until recently. In the beginning of the 20th century the city was called Brest Lithuanian, and then Brest Litovsk, that indicated his arrangement in Grand Duchy of Lithuania and also allowed to distinguish from the Polish city Brest-Kujawski, during being part of Poland. 1921–1939. The city was called as Brestoverbog. Brzesk nad Bugiem. For distinction with other Polish city. Earlier he was called as Brzestyowski, which name is nowadays transferred to Russian as Beststyowski, Breststyowski. Since September 1939, after accession to Brest. In the West Policia dialects, the name of the city is used in the form of Berest. The ancient origin of the city was confirmed as a result of archaeological excavations on the cape formed by the Western Bug River and the left sleeve of the Makovets River. Scientists, the ancient settlement of ancient Brest was revealed. The territory of the Volinsk, strengthening of the Brest fortress now. It consisted of the Brest Detnitz triangular in respect of a form, about 1 hectare, strengthened from the floor party by a ditch, an earth shaft and a paling, and the roundabout city. Posad, which was opposite to Detnitz on the island. On Detnitz the streets paved with a tree, the remains more than 200 inhabited and farm buildings, one-story fellings from logs of coniferous breed are dug up. In the course of excavation, instruments of labor, house utensils, various jewelry and metalwares, glasses, a stone, a tree and skin are found. Finds demonstrate development of crafts, commercial and cultural ties with the cities of ancient Russia and with neighboring countries. Archaeological research is allowed to draw a conclusion that Brest arose in the territory of resettlement of Dregovichi, East Slavic breeding association. The Berestysky ancient settlement existed in the 11th, 13th centuries. Detnitz is based on a turn of the 10th, 11th centuries. Nowadays in his territory the archaeological museum, Beresty, is created. In the list of the middle of the 17th century in structure, the Pipe Beckers Badarikon under Yesef Drizna's edition is available, a complex of Turovsky charters which port the authorized diploma about a postavilna of the Turovsky Episcopia, according to which the Prince Great Kiev Vasily Vladimir Sviatovich at summer 6513, 1005. Gave to the Turovsky Episcopia together with other cities in Berest is. In the 11th century Beresty was shopping center and fortress on a Porbesia with the Polish and Lithuanian possession. The place where took place ancient Beresty was on crossing of two most ancient tradeways. One of them went across the western Bug from Galitsky Russia and Volhynia to Poland, the Baltics and Western Europe, another, on Mukovtsa, the swamp Ping, to Pripyat, Dnieper, and connected Beresty with Kiev, Black Sea coast, the Middle East. Due to boundary placement the city often acted as object of intestine fight and military collisions, passed from hand to hand, more than once was plundered and destroyed. In 1016 he was subdued by the Polish Prince Bolesław Rabry. The Grand Duke Kiev Yaroslav the Wise undertook campaigns on Beresty in 1017, 1022 and 1031, and in 1044 returned him to the Kiev Principality. From the second half of the 12th century Beresty is a part of the Vladimiro-Volhynsky Principality. Since 1199 the Galitsko-Volhynsky Principality is mentioned in chronicles under 1153 as possession of the Prince Vladimir Andreevich, in 1173 the Prince Vladimir Mstislevich. During the early feudal period it was one of the largest cities of the Berestysky Earth which, however, despite many attempts of the local nobility, wasn't allocated to the independent principality. The city developed only as the shopping and craft center. In the 12th century in Beresty, who once again was won by Poles, the King Casimir Spravedliwy constructed the wooden lock. It was reconstructed in the second half of the 13th century, strengthening for trade caravans. In Beresty took it is washed duty on transportation of goods. In 1210 the city was occupied by Konrad Mazowiecki and Leszek Krakowski, however in 1213 Daniel Galitsky's army returns him. In the 1240th years the Berstisky Earth, which was still representing a rivalry subject between the Galitsko-Volynsk and Polish princes, was under the threat of conquest by Mongol Tatars. In January 1241 near the city there was a fight of the Birchbark Regiment. Two groups of troops of the combat, therefore defenders of the city, and many inhabitants were interrupted by Mongols. Bodies of the killed lay not Upokoyeni 4 months till the moment until in the spring of 1241 Romanovich returned. The Chronicle reports. Danilev with the brother to a Prishso to Berestiu. And not the Vosmagist of an Ita in the field, a stench for the sake of an Enestvo is Bieni. In the second half of the 13th century Berestiam owned the Volynsk Prince Vladimir Vasilkovich, at whom in the territory of the Lok in 1276-1288 the stone tower Donzan was constructed. The stone church of St. Piet is built. The tower helped citizens to maintain cruel sieges subsequently. In 1319 the Grand Duke Lithuanian Gedimin, without special resistance, attached the Berstisky Earth to Grand Duchy of Lithuania, but in 1320 Vladimir, the Volynsk Prince Andrea, returns back Berestian structure of the principality. However in 1321 Gedimin on the river Irpin breaks the Russian army. Vladimir, the Volynsk prince from the Sort Romanovichi Andrei, kills the last Russian, takes the cities of Vladimir, Lutsk, goes to Beresti on a wintering and finally attaches it to Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In 1379 Beresti was burned by Teutonic Knights. At the end of the 14th century of Beresti, mentioned in the section, Lithuanian cities, analytic, the list of the Russian cities distant and near, was the shopping and craft center of Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The population made about 2,000 inhabitants. Local merchants took out furs, leather, the wood, hemp, grain to Western Europe, imported salt, cloth, silk, paper and many other things. Through Beresti merchants from Vilna, Kiev, Chernihiv, Moscow passed. In 1380 in the city the Gostiny Dvor is constructed, fairs were organized, crafts actively developed. Potters, forge, tanning, jewelry, shoe, sewing, joiners. In 1390 the city acquires Magdeburg right. From the cities of present Belarus it received its first. Control of the city began to be exercised the Glad, consisting of Lavnik, Radets, 2 bailiffs, Catholic and the Orthodox Christian, who were serially presiding in it. The head city were Glad and also Vesels Voigt appointed by the Grand Duke Lithuanian was. The power of the city extended to the territory adjoining to it. In 1390 according to the diploma on the Magdeburg right the city was granted about 1,500 hectares of the arable land. In 1408, the village Kozlovici. Further economic development Beresti was delayed by Great War of 1409-1411 of the Kingdom Polish and Grand Duchy of Lithuania minus the Teutonic Order. At a secret meeting in the city in December 1409 the Polish King Jagiello and the Grand Duke Lithuanian Witold developed the plan of general fight with Crusaders. In Grunwaldzki fight on July 15, 1410 the Teutonic Order was crushed. As a part of the joint armies the Berestisky banner battled. By privily 1441 Beresti it is officially carried to the main towns of Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In 1463 Beresti was burned by the army of the Crimean Tatars headed by Mengli Giri. In 1413-1510 the city was a part of the Trotsky voivodeship. By the end of the 15th century in Brest there were already more than 5,000 inhabitants, 928 built-up sites. The city was freed from payment of taxes more than once. In 1500 the city was plundered by troops of the Crimean Khan Mengli Ajareya. Since 1520 Brest was the center of the county of the Podlyashsky Voivodeship. In 1566 the city becomes the center of the Berstysky Voivodeship. In 1554 according to Sigismund II Augustus Berestiu it is allowed to use an official stamp with the image of a tent tower at merge of two rivers. According to 1566, the city consisted of three main parts. The lock built on the former Deknitz ancient Berestia, places, the main urban area located on the island formed by the western Bug and Mukovtsis sleeves and connected to the Lokty Bridge and Zamukovice, on the right coast of Mukhansk. In the city there were 7,000 inhabitants. In his central castle, part buildings of magistrate and court, the market square, houses of prosperous citizens, churches and monasteries were located. Streets were paved by a tree. In 1588 cobblestone roads appeared. The municipal coat of arms of 1554 was granted to the city by the Grand Duke Lithuanian Sigismund II Augustus. The coat of arms was used also since 1938. In the 16th century Brest was the important trade and craft center of Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The Brest merchants supported close commercial relations with important shopping centers of Eastern Europe. Slutsk, Minsk, Mogilev, Polish Warsaw, Poznan, Toruniu, Lomzy, Lublin, cities of the Russian state. The annual trade turnover of the city reached in the first half of the 16th century 750,000 rubles, and the Brest customs took the second place in revenues of the state treasury. In the 1550th years the Berstysky head Nikolai Radzivilchyorny founded in the city the printing house, the first in the territory of present Belarus. In 1563 in her the Brest Bible, which is an outstanding monument of publishing, is published. In the second half of the first half of the 17th centuries in social and political life of citizens religious brotherhoods which were organized at Catholic monasteries and Orthodox churches were of great importance. They sought to keep national culture and language, opened printing houses and brotherly schools. In 1596 on Church Cathedral in Brest the Brest Union, merging of Catholic and Orthodox churches in the territory of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was adopted. In 1614 in Brest it is put Jesuits. To the second half of the 17th century the downtown was created on the island. A citadel the Brest fortress now. There was a floor space with a town hall and benches, stone buildings of monasteries of Jesuits, Bernardines, Uniatsky Church, a synagogue. In 1659 the Brest Mint were in 1664-1666 minted small copper coins, solida, with the image of Pursuit is founded the coat of arms Engel. B-17th century Brest Lithuanian became the place of gathering of military of confederations. 1605-1612. Diet of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. 1653. Brest Lithuanian, which by then was one of the main towns of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, prospered. In the middle of the century in the city there were about 11,000 inhabitants. It was rich and was considered as gate to the country, but there was accident when within a short period of time Brest underwent three terrible devastating ruins. In 1648 Bogdan Khmelnytsky's Cossacks under the leadership of the Colonel Maxim Gladky by means of local insurgents occupied Brest. The Moscow ambassador Egor Kunikov at the beginning of 1649 passing through Brest demonstrated. Brest-Lithuanian was devastated to the base. All Poles, both pikes and women, and their children were beaten without the rest, and a mansion, and houses stone drilled and scattered, and wooden poplar also made even to the field exactly.
During the Russian-Polish War of 1654-1667 and the war started by Sweden in 1655 mines the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and in 1656 against Russia Brest-Lithuanian repeatedly was in a strip of military operations.
On November 15, 1655 the Russian troops under command of the Novgorod Voivode Princess Yaroslavl crushed army of the Hetman of Grand Duchy of Lithuania P. Sapiegy near Brest-Litovsk, but to take the strengthened city in which there was a big garrison couldn't. In 1657 Swedes with Hungarians seized the Brest castle and devastated the city.
In January 1660 the city was occupied by the Russian troops under command of the Prince Ivan Khovansky, which destroyed about 1,700 people who were taking refuge in the lock, having left and live and having sent to captivity to Moscow only 50 people of Foreman led by the commandant of Ivan. In 1661 he is busied by the Polish-Lithuanian troops again.
As a result of Khovansky's attack the city of Brest-Litovsk, as well as other cities occupied during long raid of the Russian troops, all to the last building was ruined and burned. The population there was very small handful, all members of magistrate died, shop documents and magistrate books burned down. In the 17th century of strengthening of Brest-Litovsk consisted of the pentagonal lock with bastions.
During Northern War of 1721 by agreement with the Elector of Saxony and the King Polish Augustus II Silny the Russian army in 1705 entered on the territory of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
In the city Proviansky warehouses for supply of the Russian army were created. In 1706 the Swedish troops, pursuing the receding Peter I's army, occupied Brest-Lithuanian and ruined him.
The second half of 17th, the first half of the 18th centuries in the history of the city is characterized by the sharp economic downturn caused by long wars, hunger and epidemics.
The number of its inhabitants was reduced, handicraft trade and trade fell into decay. Only in the second half of the 18th century revival of economy began. Brest-Lithuanian became the main river port on the western Bug through which exported grain, hemp, the wood, etc.
In the 1770th years Podskarby outdoor Lithuanian A.
Taizengas founded cloth factory which had 7 weaving looms in Brest-Lithuanian. At the end of the 18th century in the city there were 3,500 inhabitants. In 1792 there was a residence of heads of Targovitsky Confederation here.
In 1795 Brest-Litovsk as a result of the third section of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was annexed to the Russian Empire.
As the district city was included into Slonim, since 1797 in the beginning, Lithuanian, since 1801, Grodno provinces. The city was gradually built up. In 1797 in it there were 623 houses, from them 21 stone, cloth factory and distillery. The big loss to the city was caused by the fires. In 1802 about 160 houses, in 1822 a trade part of the city, 150 benches, and 70 houses burned down. In the 18th century, the Chief Marshal of France M.
Saksansky, speaking about Brest-Litovsk, I noted.
Someone owns in wartime the stronghold that has great benefits over the adjacent country. With falling of the Polish-Lithuanian state, decline of Brest-Litovsk begins. The frequent fires, robberies of the Polish troops, wars absolutely ruined the city. In 1807, the engineer General P.
Subtilin turns on the highest command, Brest-Litovsk, a strong point of defense of the western border of the empire, and makes the project of new fortress as before this border was absolutely open.
But War of 1812 interfered with his implementation.
In days of patriotic war of 1812 in the territory of the Brest Earth, the French army faced the serious resistance of the Third Western Russian Army under command of the General A.
Tormasov.
On July 25 near Brest-Litovsk, the advanced parts of the Russian troops headed by the Major General A.
Subatov inflicted defeat over sabers of the opponent and forced the French troops to leave the city.
Military operations in the neighborhood of the city continued to be conducted also in October-November 1812. Upon termination of war, the Russian military decided to construct in Brest-Litovsk the fortress as an element of the created system of strengthenings in the west of the country.
The Brest-Lithuanian fortress was under construction on the project approved in 1830 in the territory of the city. As a result, the former city, which existed more than 500 years, was almost destroyed.
In 1819 the last Orthodox Semyonovsky church burned down, and in 1823 the Semyonovsky monastery is abolished, and only in the dining room of the monastery the parish church for a small number of Orthodox citizens, which at construction of fortress was demolished in 1834 is arranged, and the city was left without Orthodox church.
In 1835 urban development was postponed for the east on two came, between city lands and fortresses were established boundary signs, rubble columns. One of them remained at the corner of Lenin and Gogol streets. On April 26, 1842 the ceremonial opening of new fortress was held. The Brest-Lithuanian fortress found the reflection in the coat of arms of Brest-Litovsk approved in 1845. On the cape at merge of two rivers the circle from silver boards, over him towers a surf standard, in the top part of the coat of arms, a bison, the stamp sign of the Grodno province which at the time entered Brest-Litovsk. The Russian power, for the purpose of creation of fortress, completely destroyed the old city located between the western Bag and Mukotsis sleeves, in which there were ancient residential quarters with a town hall in the lock of the 17th century, and on his place in 1830, the 1848 years on K. Opperman's project fortification strengthenings were built. As a part of the Russian Empire, the city, at last, received a respite from infinite wars and attacks.
What district Brest-Litovsk was only the pale copy of the successful and significant city of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth which once existed to entre Rios, Mukovtsa and Bug.
The economy developed slowly. The city actually was an to strategic fortress. His life entirely depended on military. In 1825 about 11,000, in 1845 about 18,000 people lived in the city. In Brest-Litovsk there were 250 benches, 3 times a week the auction, annually 2 fairs were held. With development of capitalism in the second half of the beginning of the 20th century, the city, before on 3 quarters consisting of wooden houses and barracks, began to be built up, stone residential and public buildings, various enterprises and workshops were built, his territory extended. In the 1860th years in Brest-Litovsk 5 tobacco factories, 8 plants on production of candles, tanning, sewing, tinctorial and other workshops worked. In 1861 there were 178 benches, 60 taverns, 5 inns and 22 visiting houses, tavern, a candy store. The population minus 20.9 thousand people. Growth of the city at the end of the 19th century was connected with large-scale modernization of the Brest-Lithuanian fortress. 1878-1888. And in particular, with the forced construction of the railroads which connected Brest-Litovsk with the center and the southwest of Russia. In 1869 the road Brest-Litovsk, Warsaw, in 1871, Moscow, Brest-Litovsk, in 1873, Kiev, Brest-Litovsk, in 1886, Brest-Litovsk, Goma was started up in operation. In 1886 the building of the railway station which since 1888 is lit with electricity. In halls service premises was built and on platforms 160 bulbs were established. In 1889 in the city there were 2663 buildings, 248 of which stone.
A catastrophic fire of 1895 destroyed the most part of city constructions, including houses, the enterprises and workshops, benches, hospitals and schools. The railway station burned out the downtown.
The damage was 5 million rubles. The organizer of the square at Adamskaya Square in Brest-Litovsk. City's mayor of Brest-Litovsk. Merchant. According to the first all-Russian census of 1897, the population of the city made 46568 people. 25509 men and 21059 women. From them 30260 people were Jews and 12141 Orthodox Christians. Specified by the native language. Jewish -30109, Russian -10217, Polish -3358, Belarusian -1231, Ukrainian -704. Nevertheless, the city had neither a water supply system, nor the sewerage. Almost all population used water from Makans. In 1896 only 5 wells in the city had drinkable water. One hospital affected 15 beds. Since 1865 the Forkul Gymnasium, at the end of the 1870th years, city 4 great and parish schools, a private board for noble maidens, since 1874, private library, since 1885, musical and drama society of fans worked. In 1903-1904 2 gymnasiums were constructed. From the beginning of World War I the city role as large transport and logistic not increases.
Here is how the Russian artillery officer Yesafilian, returning at the end of 1914 after treatment to the front, describes a mini diary. November 29.
Brest. There is very big jam and therefore we, truly, will stay 2-3 days until deal with us. Brest is small, almost exclusively Jewish town. Today Saturday, everything is closed, there are almost no carriers as from 150-130 Jews. Weather here surprising, 10 degrees of heat. It especially seems wild after deep snow, hunting for foxes. It turns out that here in general the winter doesn't happen almost, and nobody thinks of sledge. 1 week prior to our arrival, the whole tragedy was played here, and here urgently there came Nikolay Nikolaevich. It is forbidden to write about it, and try to keep a secret. 1,000 shells exploded AD, about 500 people, the whole company of sappers with officers who were buried recently died. Explosions went consistently, since 8 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening. In the city almost all glasses burst, and from fortress splinters poured. The majority in panic ran in the field to the country. Fortunately, all warehouses and cellars with pyroxylene survived and didn't detonate, otherwise, as one officer told me, from the city, inhabitants and there is no fortress left also a trace. On the station just at this time when explosions began, there was a whole structure loaded pyroxylene, and only thanks to resourcefulness of the station master and bravery of drivers it was taken out, and that and all station gasped.
During the great retreat of the Russian troops on August 7, 1915, command of the Russian army made the decision to urgently evacuate garrison of the fortress, which is well prepared for defense already by this time because news of falling of fortresses in Kovno and Novogorodievsk, which was defenseless from the dashes applied by Germans them.
On August 12, the order of the commandant of fortress of the general from Artillery 5. Leiminga in the last day of evacuation, already under the German shelling, carried out demolition strengthenings, forts, powder cellars, an arson of bridges, warehouses, barracks. A city located near the flaring fortress and in the center of 2 external rings from the blowing up and burning defensive forts and strengthenings, practically all was captured by the fire and burned out for 70%. The Supreme Command made the decision that Fortress Brest-Litovsk won't conduct defense. She should be evacuated. Khoz gave to military for export of property. Refugees were sent on foot that became the tragedy for many locals. The Russian troops left fortress in the night of August 13, 1915. The order of blasting fortifications with 12 for August 13 was defined by the order of the Chief of Staff of the Third Army. Destroyed everything that could. The receding Russian troops set fire to the city during 7. On August 8. 7. On August 8 the city was burned down by the special teams of rebels and Cossacks who drove about on the city, expelled local, someone remained, from houses and set fire. Malls, benches, profitable houses, everything was on fire. The participant of those events, the chief of engineers of Fortress Major General Ivan Liders, looked at the burning city, standing on the highway near a Folvark attrition. We witnessed unforgettable, to shower of a tremendous picture of the enchanting fire. Not only all city entirely, his vicinities, structures of an engineering workshop on a fort free, but also neighboring villages on all available space burned, and even the separate crosses which were sticking out at the cemetery were captured by a flame and burned in the form of torches, he wrote in the memoirs. And here what was written by the officer of the German army, Captain Paulman, observing the city from the height on the left coast of Mukhants. As driven, we stopped looking at this huge show. As far as could capture an eye, we saw the continuous huge sea of fire rising to the sky, over which, darkening the sun, the huge smoke cloud rose, announcing all vicinity. Brest died. The fire destroyed 70% of housing facilities of Brest-Litovsk. From the total number of 3670 houses existing before war, 2500 with a total number of 15,000 premises were destroyed. Germans entered on the ashes and were engaged in export of what survived, and dismantling of affected buildings on bricks. Took away bricks, a channel, and took out to Germany. Leaving, the Russian troops blew up almost in all forts caponiers, casemates and powder cellars. With 9 on December 22.
1917 On March 3, 1918 in Brest-Litovsk there were peace talks between the Soviet Russia and Germany following the results of which on March 3, 1918 in the White Palace of the Brest Fortress were signed the Brest World between the Soviet Russia and the Central Powers and also the Brest World between the Ukrainian Republic
Upper and the Central Powers.
Told the Ukrainian People's Republic of the territory to the south from the Kamnitz line, Brezhana with the subsequent specification of border by the mixed German-Ukrainian Commission taking into account the ethnic structure and wishes of local population what led to the fact that Brest-Litovsk departed in the structure of Ukrainian People's Republic as the administrative
center of the earth of Podlashi. In March 1918 as a part of Onyholmsky Provincial Starostvo province, which administrative center is Brest, is formed. At this time locals began to come back to Brest-Litovsk. Those that didn't leave deep into the Russian Empire and settled in the neighboring settlements. In the city I began to arise though some life. And up to this point it was impossible to enter Brest-Litovsk, Germans forbade.
When locals came they gasped.
The city wasn't.
During the Soviet-Polish War since February 9, 1919 Brest-Litovsk already was under control of the Polish Republic.
On August 2, 1920, as a result of counterattack, it was occupied by parts of the Red Army. And on August 18, after defeat of the Red Army near Warsaw, the city was occupied with the Polish connections again. By results of the Riga Contract I departed to the Polish Republic. Refugees began to come back to the city in large quantities. It was the heaviest time, conditions were awful, epidemics flashed. City baths were quickly restored, and locals needed to have surely the reference that he 2 times a month visited a bath. That someone didn't submit wrote out penalties and by force ordered to wash. The city authorities put away construction debris, restored streets, buildings, social objects.
Humanitarian missions helped with construction of barracks where it was possible to lodge refugees.
Lacked housing, inhabitants huddled in tents, cellars of the destroyed buildings. Restoration of the city was conducted all 20 years in the period of interwar Poland. To World War II Brest, so up to the end, was also not restored. Since 1923 the city was called Brestoverbyg, for distinction with other Polish city Brest-Kujawski, the center of the Policia Voivodeship.
On September 14, 1939 during invasion into Poland the German 19th Motorized Case attacked the city and occupied them.
In the morning on September 17 Germans occupied also fortress. On September 22 Brest was transferred, according to the non-aggression pact between Germany and the Soviet Union, known also as Molotov's Pact Ribbentrop. The 29th Armored Brigade of the Red Army during the improvised parade, and B's is included in structure of the Hussar as the center of the neogenic Brest region. Down the river the western bug the Soviet-German frontier lay. On June 22, 1941, at the beginning of the Great Patriotic War, the city and fortress some of the first underwent the attack of the German troops.
Defense of the Brest fortress, in which at the time of the attack there were about 6,000–7,000 Soviet servicemen and also dikes of families of commanders, became a symbol of firmness, courage and military valor.
Instead of several hours allotted by the German command on mastering fortress, it was necessary to the 45th Division of Wehrmacht, sustaining considerable losses, here to conduct battles during the whole week, and the separate centers of resistance existed within a month. Subsequently to two participants of heroic defense, the Lieutenant A. Kizavotov, posthumously, and to the Major P.
Navratilov, the ranks of heroes of the Soviet Union were given. Many others of legendary garrison were noted by awards and medals.
Brest was included by the occupational authorities in structure of the Requisariat Ukraine. For years of the German occupation, about 40,000 residents were destroyed. Jews of Brest were driven in the Brest ghetto organized by Nazis and almost completely destroyed. The economy of Brest actually ceased to exist. On July 28, 1944, during the Lublin-Brest operation, the city was freed by troops of the First Belarusian Front. In honor of this event, one of city streets, July 28th Street, is called. Also on July 28, the City Day is celebrated. By a result of the Yalta Conference, which took place in February 1945, I was the border of Poland across Bug, and finding of Brest as a part of the USSR is confirmed. After the termination of the Great Patriotic War, Brest began to develop quickly as the industrial center. The population of the city quickly increased. In February 1947, the first bus route, the railway station, the Delay, the southern town, was open. From August 1955 to April 1959, the Brest Regional Organization of the Communist Party of Belarus was headed by P. Nasharov, future First Secretary of the Central Committee of the RKB of Belarus. Since 1967, construction of the new large inhabited residential district East began. In 1981, the trolleybus movement is begun. In 1986, the modern air terminal complex is constructed. With disintegration of the Soviet Union and formation of Republic of Belarus as a part of which Brest remained the regional center, the flow of tourists to the city decreased. At the same time, the Brest fortress, the leader of Belarus in attendance in 2012, and the second place after the museum, Nesvas, in 2013. In 2013, this historical place was visited by 390,000 people. In the odd years, improvement of city streets, construction of large housing objects was conducted. Massachusetts housing construction continued. In 2001, the monastery Rozdestvo Bogorodichny is open. The 2010 years are celebrated by development of road infrastructure. Actively, the left bank part of the city, over the river, develops. In 2011, the city was affected by revolution events through social networks. Since June 8, silent meetings began to take place there. Detentions of protesters became the reply of militia, but their number all the same grew at. However, the authorities took measures. limited access to points of gathering of protesters, arrested them, etc. Therefore the number of the Brest protesters began to fall. After the actions on July 27 which took place in the markets and the areas, a break was taken. In September actions were resumed again, but because of their small number became inefficient and soon stopped. Also in 2011 near Brest the action of Stop Gasoline took place. Protest actions in Belarus of 2017 affected Brest again. On February 19 about 100 participants, on February 26, 300 participants, and on March 5 already from 1,000 to 2,000 people gathered. Brest was one of the centers of protests of 2020. On August 10 in the city there took place collisions of staff of Oman with protesters, during which Oman applied statushumovi checkers, and protesters exposed barricades. In reply to minding security officers the non-conventional method of their temporary neutralization, spraying on transparent elements of helmets and boards of foam from barrels was used. On August 11 in Brest the participant of protests Gennady Shutov, Belarusian, Russian, was wounded. He in critical condition was transferred to hospital of the Ministry of Defense, where on August 19 he died. Jews lodged in Brest-Litovsk even before K-Stut's reigning. 1341-1382.
The diploma Witold of July 1, 1388 was originally given to the Brest Jews and only later addressed in privilege for all Jews of Lithuania.
In 1388 the Grand Duke Witold granted to the Brest Jewish community privily, provided to Jews freedom of worship and certain rights in finance and trade.
Throughout the 14th-17th centuries Brest was the main center of the Jewish communities of Grand Duchy of Lithuania.
In language Yiddish the city was called Brisk.
In 1411 the Prince Witold allowed Berestijski Jews to construct a synagogue and even allocated free of charge a brick and clay.
The Big Stone Synagogue was famous across the whole Europe for the architecture and finishing. In 1842 it was destroyed at construction of the Brest-Lithuanian fortress.
The local Jewish community received compensation which together with private donations allowed to construct a new synagogue in 1862.
The base and walls of the former Big Synagogue, nowadays Belarus Movie Theatre. On a census of 1861 9,343 persons, including 10320 Jews lived in Brest. On a census of 1897 in the city there were 46586 inhabitants, from them 30608 Jews. 65.8%. In 1802 the fire exterminated the most part of the Jewish quarter. The fire of 1828 destroyed many Jewish buildings again, among them there are 5 houses of worship. In 1939 Jews, 41.3% of all population, lived in Brest. In May 1937 in the city the Jewish disorder during which 3 Jews were killed took place, and more than 50 were wounded. The Jewish quarter was crushed. The Polish military garrison of the city didn't interfere in any way with disorder which continued 16 hours. Also city authorities and police didn't rise in defense of Jews.
In the first days of the Great Patriotic War the German troops occupied Brest and at once involved many Jews in forced labor.
During the German occupation of the city during the Great Patriotic War only in June 1941 by the division Einsatzgruppe in, together with parts of Wehrmacht shot from 4 to 5,000 Jews. In December 1941 the Jewish population of Brest was imprisoned in the Brest ghetto. In October 1942 about 17,000 Jews of Brest were taken out on the railway station Branea the Mountain and shot. In 1970 in Brest lived, according to estimated data, about 2,000 Jews. Less than 2% of the population. The last Soviet census of 1989 registered in the city of 1080 Jews. 0.4% of the general population. Since the beginning of the 1990th years the large number of Jews of Brest left to Israel and other countries. According to a census of Belarus of 1999 415 Jews lived in Brest. In 2009 the number of the Jewish population of the city was about 200 people.
Geographically the center of the Brest region is located in 320 km to the southwest from Minsk, on the western outskirts of Policia representing the boggy flat lowland rather deforested owing to influence of the Persian.
A relief of the territory in which Brest equal. Absolute heights from 123 m, heights of an Uras of the western Bug, up to 130 m. Makovca who is poorly going down to the floodplain lies on the western outskirts of the city of Makovets falls into the western Bug, forking on two sleeves. In the territory of Brest Makovets doesn't accept inflows. On the northern outskirts of Brest the small river Forest, the right inflow of the western Bug flows. Brest is in the time zone designated according to the international standard as the East European summertime. UTS +3. The square of the city -14527 hectares is rather big a share of green plantings. The city is located in an environment of the green space occupying the space of 2,500 hectares. In the territory of Brest there is a number of parks, including the Park of a Name on May 1, the Park of Soldiers Internationalists, etc. and squares.
Since October 15, 2012 borders of the city and the Brest district were changed by the decision of the Brest Regional Council of Deputies from September 11, 2012 No. 219 according to which the city boundaries of Brest included the land plots with a total area of
82-81 hectares located before in the Brest district. The Telminsky Village Council 0.86 km.
Of the utility unitary agricultural company, Brest State Farm and 0.121 hectares, Brest Municipal Government of Capital Construction, Municipal Unitary Enterprise. Therefore the territory of the city at the moment makes 14612 hectares or 146.12 square kilometer.
In the territory of the city one nature sanctuary of Republican value, a unique tree is located. A fir tree ordinary a serpentine form in the city park. The landscape surrounding the city generally anthropogenic, agricultural grounds, housing estates, meet certain forests. A pine and aspen, etc. Near Brest the landscape wildlife area of Republican value, Przybierskie Policia, and also 3 wildlife areas of local value is located. Wykski. In the floodplain of the rivers the Western Bug and Forest. Brest.
In the floodplain of the Makovets River near the village of Vicholki.
Barbastella.
Near the village Kozlovici.
Where in the territory of ancient forts protection of the colony of bats, largest in Belarus, is conducted. Meteorological observations in Brest are conducted since 1834. Climate near the city, moderately continental. Because of influence of sea air masses, the soft winter and moderately warm summer is characteristic. Cyclones, which are the reason of it, move from the Atlantic Ocean from the west to the east. Average temperature of January 2.6 C, July of plus 19.3 C.
Annual amount of precipitation of 609.
Average annual air temperature in Brest is plus 8.2 C. The average annual speed of wind minus 2.6 m/s. Average annual humidity of air minus 76%. The vegetative period lasts 214 days. In a year, on average 160 days it is raining, 68 days snow. Fogs are observed within 33 days, a thunderstorm minus 27 days. The city, it is estimated as one of the most safe among the Belarusian cities. The main pollutants: motor transport. About 78% of the pollutants released into the atmosphere. And power system. As the Guardian of Natural Resources and Environmental Protection of Brest reports, motor transport releases into the atmosphere of the city more than 10,000 tons of pollutants a year.
In 2004, in the atmosphere from the stationary sources of emission located in the territory of the city, 2276 t of pollutants were thrown up.
In total, in the territory of Brest for 2004, there were 15 stationary sources of emission of pollutants. From them, 452 sources are equipped with cleaning. In 2017, opened a cycle strip on the carriageway, one of the first in Belarus. Fourteen enterprises of Brest have production of sewage. In addition, in the territory of the city there are 26 releases of the stormwater drainage system, including 18 releases to the Makovets River, 5 to the river Forest and 3 to the floodplain of the Western Bug River. According to data for 1870, in Brest was considered inhabitants the husband. 13783 wives. 8149. Jews 9874. Year number 1390 2000. 1450 5000. 1825 11000. 1861 20900. 1897 46600. 1959 73600. 1970 121600. 1979 card. 1985 card. 1998 card. 2004 298300. 2008 card. 2009 309764. 2010 310800. 2012 322100. 2014 330947. 2015 335645. 2016 340141. 2017 343985. 2018 347576. 2019 350616. 2020 339700. 2021 340318. Women make more than 54% of the population of Brest. The population of the city is made by representatives of 61 nationalities, including Belarusians, more than 82%, Russian -10.7%, Ukrainians, more than 4%, Poles, about 1%, Jews -0.07%. In 2017 in Brest was born 43 29 and 29 13 people, including 15 children aged till 1 year died. All number been born Brest advances Vitebsk and Mogilev, but concedes to Gomel and Grodno, and the number of the dead in Brest the lowest among all regional centers. Birth rate coefficient -12.5 on 1,000 people. An average value across the Brest region -11.8, across Republic of Belarus -10. Mortality rate -8.4 on 1,000 people. An average value across the Brest region -12.8, across Republic of Belarus -12. Birth rate level in Brest the highest among all regional centers, and death rate, one of the lowest. Is slightly higher than in Grodno. When Reformation got into Lithuania, Brest became one of the centers of Calvinism. Brest in the administrative relation is divided into two areas: Lenin and Moscow. There are also traditional names of a number of residential districts.
Atomkovo, Arkady, Beryazovka, Granada East, Delay, Volkopodgorodsky, Vicholki, Perjolna, Prayak, Dubrovka, Factory, Zarekny, Kadenbor, Kaevka, Kovalyovo, Kozlovichi, Voldbor, Moshchink, Newzadvorce, Plosk, Pugachevo, Rasika, Oldzadvorce, Trishin, Yushny. Before inclusion in city line in 1929, Grayevka and Kaevka were settlements which population was generally engaged in service of the railway junction of Brest.
Representative body of the power is the Brest City Council of Deputies. It consists of 40 people and is elected residents on single candidate districts. Term of office 4 years. The City Council of Deputies of the 28th Convocation was elected on February 18, 2018. The chairman of the City Council is N. Krasovsky. Executive and administrative organ of the power is the Brest City Executive Committee. The chairman is appointed the president and is approved as deputies of the City Council. The chairman of the Brest Executive Committee of the City Soviet of People's Deputies is A. Rogachik. Brest, the large manufacturing center of the southwest of Belarus. Among machine-building enterprises of the city, it is necessary to allocate the Brest electromechanical plant, the electrotechnical, electrolamp plants, the plant of the gas Brest as opera equipment. Hephaestus trademark. The Svetotron enterprise. Production of microelectronic components. The Brest Smish plant, the Brest Mesh plant, the Brest radio engineering plant. There are enterprises of light industry, hosiery factory, knitted, sewing production. The carpet plant is declared bankrupt. There is food production. Meat processing plant, bakery, the alcoholic beverage plant, Belalco, the beer and soft drinks plant, Brest Beer. There is a souvenir factory. In 1973-2019 a plant of household chemicals worked. I went bankrupt. Production of building materials is presented by plant of construction materials.
Releases a brick, a facing tile.
and the plant of reinforced concrete structures and details. Printing house works. As of 2006, the largest weight in industrial production of the city was played by the enterprises of the food industry, 45.92%. On the second place, the enterprises of the branch of mechanical engineering and metal working, 34%. The third place is taken by a contribution of light industry, 8.71%.
In 2012 by the industrial enterprises it is shipped products in established prices for the sum of 15267 billion Belarusian ruble.
In the territory of Brest and the Brest district, the largest free economic zone of the country is located. In the territory of SES for the beginning of 2010, 65 enterprises, including on production of food, the equipment and materials for a road marking worked, etc. The total amount of the saved up investments was about $620 million.
The total volume of the products made here in 2009 increased in comparison with 2008 by 1.2 times and was $560 million.
The retail chain stores of the city as of February 2007 included 580 shops and about 1,000 booths and pavilions. A significant role, partly caused by border position of Brest in his economy, is played by the ware and grocery markets, in particular Central Department Store, Anniversary, Warsaw, Lagoon. Only 13 markets.
In 2007 the growth rate of industrial production of the enterprises of the city was 119.8%.
Retail commodity turnover minus 128%.
For this year it is put into operation of nearly 200,000 m.
Housing. An account part of the city budget for 2008, according to the made decision of the Brest City Council of Deputies, will make 274.4 billion Belarusian ruble, budget deficit minus 182 million rubles. In 2007 the extreme extent of deficiency was 900 million rubles.
For July 1, 2017, 1% of able-bodied population is registered in the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection of the Republic as the unemployed.
The average monthly nominal charged wage, to a deduction of income tax and some assignments, in 2017 in Brest was 810.8 rubles, that above the average salary across the Brest region, 699 rubles.
And it is insignificant below the average salary over the country,
823 rubles. Brest takes the 9th place on salary level among 129 areas and the cities of regional submission of Belarus, advancing all regional centers except Minsk. The city of Brest is the important transport hub in the southwest of Belarus and also considerable transit point on frontier with Poland. In the city 3 customs terminals function. Brest, the important railway junction on the Moscow-Berlin highway. There are also lines to Zaboloti, Vysokolitevsk, Tomasovka. Station Vlodava. Large cargo terminals, locomotive depot operate.
In the territory of the city are located
Railway station Brest Central, stations Brest Northern, Brest East, Brest Policia, Brest Yushny, Southwest.
In Brest, replacement of carriage carts of the structures crossing border between Belarus and Poland in connection with various size of a railway track is carried out.
The stations of Brest and adjacent sites of the railroads are serviced by the Brest office of the Belarusian Railroad.
Through Brest there passes the International Automobile Transport Corridor E.
Cork, Berlin, Warsaw, Brest, Minsk, Moscow, Chelyabinsk, Omsk. There are also highways on Kamnitz to Malaret, etc. Near Brest automobile throughput boundary transitions, Warszawski Bridge, and Kozlovice, are located. There is a railway boundary transition by connecting Brest with Tiraspol, Poland, and located in 2.5 km from the station. During 2006-2007 the southern automobile round of the city with bridges through the Makowets River is constructed. Public transport of Brest is presented bus. For August 2017 62 routes work. And trolleybus 8 routes by networks. In addition, the network of share taxis. For June 2021 17 routes works. In 2019 the new building of bus station was open. Its capacity is 250 passengers. Capacity -6-8,000 people a day. In 12 km to the east from the city there is international. Since 1986. A Brest airport with air terminal complex, the customs terminal and a customs warehouse. At the time of the USSR Airlines connected Brest with 15 cities, including Moscow, Minsk, Chisinau and others. Due to the sharp falling of passenger traffic, regular passenger flights were in the early 90s cancelled and since then were carried out incidentally. Since October 2009 regular. 3 times a week. Flights to Moscow from Brest were performed by Atlas Union Airline, however they were stopped. For 2017 from the airport regular flights Brest, Kaliningrad, except them are made, the airport is used by charter flights. The Brest River Port operates on the Makowets River.
In the years of existence of the USSR the port specialized in the basic in and overload of the iron ore delivered via the Dnieper and Bugsky Channel from the Kryvyi fields on iron and steel works of the Deder, on railway transport.
In Makovts's mouth there is a death dam owing to what transit navigation is impossible. After the reunification of Germany the German metallurgists were reoriented on the ore extracted in Germany, and goods turnover of port strongly decreased.
In 2013 preparatory work on transfer of the port of Brest from the downtown to the area of Yama began.
The project repeatedly changed because of insufficient financing. On the site of new port household rooms and the first stage of the mooring are partially built, the road and a line of power supply is drawn. Now installation and construction works on the platform are frozen. Brest is in the lead in development of the bicycle movement in Belarus.
Though the city the maximum distance from the outskirts to the center only 7 km has the big area.
30 minutes by bicycle. And it is the typical length of a city bicycle trip in the countries with the developed cycle movement.
It is important that Brest is one of the warmest cities of Belarus for now. Belarusians psychologically carry the bicycle to means of transport for a warm season.
The survey report Development of the City Bicycle Movement in Belarus in 2017-2019. The current situation and the made progress.
In the city 65 preschool institutions in which more than 12,000 children, including 1 sanatorium garden and special facility for children with features of psychophysical development are raised work.
Secondary education is presented by elementary school, 31 high schools, 6 gymnasiums, 2 lyceums. Regional and city. 2 industrial practice plants give the chance of vocational guidance of nearly 4,000 pupils. In addition, 1 works 2 musical, art and 1 choreographic schools. Higher educational institutions. Brest State University of A.S. Pushkin. Brest State Technical University. Brest branch of the Belarusian National Technical University. Among specialized secondary educational institutions there are cities. Branch of Pro2 Polytechnical College. Brest State College of Services Industry. Brest State College of Communication. Brest State Musical College of Name G. Screens. Brest State Medical College. Brest State Trade and Technological College. Brest State Professional College of Trade. The Brest College, branch of Institution of Education, Belarusian State University of Transport. Branch of the Minsk-Chu College of Business and Right. Brest State Regional School of the Olympic Reserve. Vocational Training. Brest State Professional Lyceum of Railway Transport. Brest State Professional College of Instrument Making. Brest State Professional Lyceum of Builders. Brest State Professional Lyceum of Light Industry. In educational institutions of the city, 18 museums of various profiles work. Local history, ethnographic, military glory, memorial, including Museum of Military Glory of Gymnasium No.
On the museum, Boys of Immortal Brest, of a post of memory at the eternal flame of the memorial complex, Brest Fortress Hero, the Regional Geographic Museum, Amistad of Gymnasium No.
5. Center of Youth Creativity. Soviet name. Regional Palace of Pioneers and School Students. Brest is one of important cultural historic centers of Belarus. The network of cultural institutions of the city includes 16 recreation centers and clubs and also 2 movie theaters.
Belarus World
is a part of library network -14 libraries, including the Central City Library of A.S.
Pushkin and Regional Library of M.
Gorky. As of October 2005, the library stock of the city made 3,847,700 copies. In Brest, the Regional Philharmonic Hall, the Academic Drama Theatre and Puppet Theatre work. In the city, regional and international festivals are held. The International Theatre Festival, White Veza, a festival of the Belarusian National Cinema, a festival of drama art, a theatrical kaleidoscope, the International Theatre Festival of Disabled People, Neprotaptanaewe, the International Festival of Architecture and Interior Design, Under the Rooftop. The International Festival of Classical Music, January Musicales, and also the International Bike Festival. Brest 2009-2011. And the International Festival of the Retro Equipment. Cars, motorcycles and bicycles.
The Planet A Piece of Iron, the International Festival of Masters of the Arts, a Motley Tulip, the International Chess Festival, Black Pawn.
Work the Archaeological Museum, Brest. There is an excavation of 1118 m. 28 wooden constructions. Regional Museum of Local Lore, Museum of History of the City, Museum, the Saved Art Values, Museum of Railway Equipment Under the Open Sky. More than 50 natural pieces of equipment. Art Museum, Museum, Jews of Brest. In Brest, the Brestski Courier newspapers were issued till 2018. It was closed for the financial reasons. And the Brest newspaper till 2021. All Belarusian printing houses refused to print the non-state editions, which are a part of Association of Publishers of the Regional Press.
The Brest Bulletin, Evening Brest, a National Tribune, Don Dugo.
Now are issued state. Broadcasts of the radio set 99.2 FM. Radio Brest 104.8 FM. And the City of FM are conducted 97.7 FM. Both consist in structure of Brest Shopping Mall. The television is presented by Brest Shopping Mall TV channel, Belarus 4. Brest and Bike TV. Commercial channel. The city is divided into two parts by the Makovets River. Through the river 4 road and 2 railway bridges are thrown. To the north from the river there are quarters of the historic center, which is built up with 1 2-storied houses of the end of the beginning of the 20th century. The extensive quarters which are built up with private houses, the residential district east which is built up with multi-storied houses and also areas of factory building.
To the south from Mukhan's new areas of Massachusetts building of Kavalyovo, Volk actively develop. For 2017 the total area of housing stock of the city increased more than by 1.6 times, from 5,134.6 thousand m
up to 8,452.7 thousand m. Security with housing from 17.8 m.
On the person up to 24.3 m.
If in 2000 the city occupied one of the last places in the country on security of the population with housing among the large cities, then by the end of 2017 came to the 3rd place, slightly conceding only to Babrisk and Brnovici. Housing prices in Brest, some of the highest among the large cities in the Republic.
Following the results of the I quarter 2019 the price is 1 m.
The apartments sold in the city averaged $701. Above only in Minsk. $1286. And Soligorsk. $704.
In 2014 the prices of the residential real estate in Brest sometime exceeded $1,000 for 1 m.
Plavnaya City Street, Masharov Avenue, passes into Moskovskaya Street. The main pedestrian street of Brest, Sovetskaya Street cutting the downtown, crossed by boulevards. Gogol Street is partially turned into the Avenue of Shod Lamps. Reconstruction of a number of the main central streets is conducted or planned in the nearest future. Soviet, boulevards of Astronauts and Shevchenko, Masharev Avenue, etc. Total length of streets, roads and drives of the city on the middle of 2005, 231.2 km. The main tourist objective Brest the Memorial Complex, Brest Fortress Hero, and also the Archaeological Museum, Brest, and the Museum of the Saved Values traditionally is considered. In Brest remain several buildings which are architecture monuments. Massive Sacred and Nikolai Garrison Cathedral, 1856-1879. The railway station, 1886. It is strongly reconstructed. The Sacred and Nikolai Brotherly Church, 1904-1906. The Sacred and Simeonovsky Cathedral, 1865-1868. Church of Erection of the Sacred Cross, 1856. Etc. A certain interest as monuments of the medieval town, also monastery ruins represent a Bernardinec. The 17th-18th centuries. A collegium of Jesuits and the Peter and Paul Basiliansky Church. The end of the 18th century. In which building the Brest World was signed subsequently. The monument of the Millennium of Brest opened in 2009 is distinguished from monuments in the city. The Museum Drugstore Grinbergov, where the exposition on a subject of history of pharmacy is collected, is open for visitors. In 2007 the Museum of the Brest Militia appeared. Nearby, in the village of Chernavchice on the highway Brest-Kamnitz, one of the oldest monuments of medieval Belarusian architecture, the Troitsk Church. The end of 1588 years. In the city of Kamnitz, a defensive water of the 13th century. Near the northwest of the city, in the village of Skokie, there is an estate Nemcevici built in 1770 in Baroque style. To the north from Brest there is a national park, Bialowieza Forest. The oldest and largest cemetery of the city, the Trushinsky Cemetery, is entered in the state list of historical and cultural values of Republic of Belarus. Health sector of Brest is presented by the following medical institutions. 7 hospitals, including the Central City Hospital No. 1. The Psychiatric Hospital of the Brest Regional Psychoneurological Clinic, Hospital of Emergency Medical Service with the station of ambulance in the structure. 5 polyclinics for adults. The 4th polyclinic in 2008 received the status of the Central City Polyclinic. 2 children's polyclinics, 4 dental polyclinics, 9 dispensary institutions, the Center of Plastic Surgery and Cosmetology and Medical and Advisory Polyclinic. The extensive pharmacy chain functions. Also in the territory of the city, near Vichalka, the Brest Regional Clinical Hospital serving inhabitants of both the regional center and all region in general is located. The Brest Regional Lunatic Asylum is out of Brest, in the village of Mogilyovci. In the neighborhood of Brest Sanatoria by Gunbarasti, a recreation area Lake Beloy to the south from the city with numerous recreation facilities, etc. are located. On March 5, 6, 2009 the city of Brest was chosen as the place for holding a meeting of Coordination Council of Services of Blood of the States of the Commonwealth of Independent States, in which work experts of Belarus, the Russian Federation, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Ukraine took part. The most important city sports clubs of Brest. Football Dynamo Brest. The champion of Belarus of 2019, the owner of the Cup of Belarus of 2007, 2016/2017, 2017/2018 and the bronze prize winner of 1992 acts in the highest league of Belarus. Football Ruck acts in the highest league of Belarus. Hockey Brest Acts in an Extraliga. Team on field hockey, Builder. Handball Club of Meshikov. 11-time champion of Belarus. Women's Handball Club, Victoria Brest. Acts in the Championship and A Cup of Belarus. Brest Bison's baseball team.
Volleyball Club, Pribashi, the 3-time champion of Belarus in volleyball among women.
Volleyball Club, Western Bug, the owner of the first Cup of Belarus in the sovereign history of the country. Team on 5A-side amateur. Basketball national team of the Brest region, women's soccer team, Dynamo Brest, women's basketball SOR, Victoria. There are centers of the Olympic Reserve. On game sports.
Office of Basketball, Volleyball, Handball.
On rowing, on equestrian sport. 20 sports schools, including the Olympic Reserve work. A ski roller route, tennis courts, 2 track and field athletics arenas, 4 stadiums, 6 swimming pools, 155 gyms, a set of sports clubs and sections work in the city. Large sporting venues work. Palace of Water Sports. Palace of Game Sports, Victoria. Track and field athletics arena. Ice arena. Brest Regional Center of the Olympic Reserve for rowing. Shooting gallery for the international competitions. OSC, Brest. Baseball stadium. GEFSESC Alliance Kart Stadium. In Brest, the Rowing European Championships 2009 and 2A Futsal were held 2012. The greatest fame was gained by the literary works and arts devoted to a feat of defenders of the Brest Fortress. Among them, the book Brest Fortress, 1957, the expanded edition of 1964, the Lenin Award of 1965. The Soviet writer S. Smirnov, which for the first time glorified a feat of defenders of fortress.
The fate of the yesterday's cadet who in a moment became the hero in the center of the narration of other famous book about heroes of the Brest Fortress, the novel by B.
Vasilyev enlists, it didn't appear. 1974. On his screen it was told about courage of defenders of a citadel in such movies as Immortal Garrison, 1956. Of directors Z. Agranenko and E. Tis according to K.
Semenov scenario.
I Am the Russian Soldier, 1995. The director A. Nalyukov, based on the novel, enlists, it did not appear. Stories of the Brest Fortress, the art and publicistic movie by the director D. Quotes of the Brest Fortress, of the Belarusian TV company, Voyan TV, which appeared in 2006 according to S.
Zarubi's scenario is devoted to the tragic fate of her defenders and return of memory of them.
The book The Brest Fortress on History Wins served as one of the main references of the scenario. The author A. Suvarev, Brest 2004.
At the beginning of 2007 it became known that the Telebroadcasting Organization of the Union State of Russia and Belarus plans to shoot the new feature film about defense of the Brest fortress.
Shootings took place in Brest under the leadership of the director A. Taught and came to the end with a premiere on June 22, 2010 in the Brest fortress. In Brest there took place shooting Palma. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.